The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and a couples fight that I do not want to get in the middle of.
What?
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
Bonjour, Mila Steve.
This is podcast episode number 313. Tonight we'll be discussing episode 4, the first season of The Ones Who Live. The title of the episode in all of its Gimple glory is What We.
What we?
What we? I
What
mean, is the emphasis on the what? On the we?
I don't know.
What
That's a
we?
good question. We? What? I mean,
We?
who knows?
What we?
Hmm.
There must be some missing piece. Oh, it's the adorable cleverness of Gimple. The next episode's
Next episode,
is
sure.
become.
I
We
get you.
become.
Well, we become as angry at these stupid titles. That's what we
Yeah,
become.
no shit, Gimple. Listen, if just Gimple does the titles, that's fine. Just let Denai continue to write the episode, and I'm fine with that. Let's stick with that. And I'd be like, Denai, write the episode. It's great, and then Gimple, just call it whatever the f you want. I don't.
Right, just get the
All right.
hell out of the way.
We're sorry. We love you, Gimple. You're great. Yeah, he's fantastic. All right, so before we dive into the episode itself, let's do some real quick, like rapid fire, quick thoughts. I went first last week, and Steve, it is your turn to go first. So for episode 4 of this first season, what in general, what were your thoughts on this episode?
I think for the most part, I liked it. I said last week was probably the best episode of the 3 that they'd shown. And I think this episode surpassed last week, and two totally different episodes in terms of makeup. Last week had a lot of action. This one, we were just talking about it before we started. This one really felt like a one-act play
Yes.
with 2 characters in basically one setting. The suite, the apartment or whatever. Yes, some of the powerhouse stuff happened down in the weight room too, but for the most part, it was a one location thing. And then that one act play was kind of broken up by these, really kick-ass action sequences where the 2 of them went out and killed a bunch of ghouls. So I really liked it. There's just a couple of things. There was one. It was more of a editing and a directorial thing where I thought, it confused me, and I thought it was poorly handled, which we'll get to. But both of them were great. The writing was great, and it's really one of the just joys of watching film or TV or theater is when you see 2 really good really good actors, and they have really good scripts to chew on and just act the crap out of. And I think that's what we got to see in this episode. And, I can watch that, every day of the week and twice on Sunday. So I really liked it. What'd you think?
It's funny because, twice on Sundays, that's normally what we do anyway for the
I know,
show.
that's why I said it.
We don't even have to try. I would also say, too, along those same lines, great writing, great actors with a lot of meaty stuff to chew on for that, but also they have great chemistry. And so you put those together, and to me, for this episode, and we were split last week. I didn't care as much for last week's episode, and I said I was really just sort of wanting more, like knowing what these guys can do, and I was very hopeful because I know what kind of writer Denai Guerrera is, and I was hopeful that this would be the episode that sort of said to me, yes, this is a great series. This is something that's meaty, that has something to say, and can do wonderful things, because they hadn't quite gotten there with it yet as of last week to me. But for this episode, fantastic. To me, so far, I would say, to me, this is the best episode of the season. And, they still have 2 left, but when Denai knows what she's doing. And like you said, the one-act play, absolutely. It had all of the trappings of a one-act play. It's a 2-hander, single place, they can't go anywhere. And it just bubbled with tension. I cried watching this. I laughed watching this. I was a little scared here and there. I mean, yes, these are our heroes, and will something happen to them? Probably not. But they could get hurt. They could get injured. And so I just more than any other episode so far this season, by far, this was my favorite. These are great characters that act the hell out of things when they get the chance, and man, did they get the chance. Denai wrote a wonderful script, and yes, like you said, there are a handful of things to sort of nitpick about. To me, though, ultimately slightly inconsequential, because to me, what this show needed was to really, we knew that it could have heart. I knew. Others have been enjoying since day one, and I appreciate that. For me, it felt like it hadn't found its heart yet, and it did. And it's almost like she had to beat it out of him, mm-hmm. and it worked. It worked. I absolutely loved this episode. It's the episode I sort of wanted and needed for my heart and my mind, and I got that and more, which is wonderful. I thought it was so great. So moving on, let's talk details of the episode. But before we do that, let's get into the smallest episode description known to man, and that's really your thing to discuss, my friend. So I'll let you have that.
Well, it's not going to take long.
Okay.
But let's get right into it. So this week's episode is being brought to you by...
The following is a paid infomercial.
Hello, my name is Dr. Lakshmi Patel, the creator and CEO of Greenwood. What is Greenwood, you ask? Greenwood is a place unlike anything else in the zombie world. Designed by like-minded innovators seeking to live off the grid, to create a new, more sustained and hopeful tomorrow, and to provide you and your partner someplace to get busy. Right now, I'm standing in one of our specially designed climate control suites.
Welcome home.
Well, thank you, Smart Room. It's good to be home.
Your preferred temperature will be reached in 5 minutes.
That's enough, Smart Room. Sometimes innovation can be too much. For more than a decade now, Greenwood Suites have proven to be the anniversary and birthday getaway destination for couples caught up in the zombie apocalypse. Close to home and with flexible times, Greenwood is the perfect place for busy couples to enjoy a time out. Greenwood is an adults-only resort, a romantic paradise to ignite feelings, rekindle the romance, and enjoy quality time together. If you know what I mean. Designed by the best and brightest, every Greenwood suite is designed to relax and soothe the body and mind. Our special Smart Room technology allows you to set just the right mood. For example, if you like thunderstorms...
Initiating thunderstorms.
Stop, thunderstorm, Smart Room. As I was saying, our Smart Room technology is designed to...
Your preferred temperature will be reached in 3 minutes.
Shut up, Smart Room! Our Smart Room technology is designed to provide every amenity possible, and rest assured, the quality and cleanliness of our suites is second to none with our patented automated cleaning system.
Activating automated cleaning system. Roombas engaged.
Oh, for the love of... That's it! I've had it with this stupid Smart Room, stupid Roombas. I'm heading off to the gym, and I'm gonna go electrocute myself.
Greenwood. Our motto is progress and redemption through innovation, and helping you get some.
Wow. I mean, I want to go there.
Of course you do. I mean, it offers so much, comfort,
elegance, style,
technology,
and a place to get busy.
Oh man, I love that he was scared by the Roomba. Trying to get busy, and he's like, "What's that noise?
What the hell?" Well,
it's the small robot in the corner that's gonna, sweep the floor.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now that we know who's paying for this week's show, the episode description we have is as follows. And again, this is episode 1.4 of TOWL, or The Ones Who Live. And the title of the episode is What We. And our description. Are you ready for this? Get ready.
Yes.
It's Rick and Michonne try to find the love they had. Aww. And
it does sound like it's the opening lines of a really bad country song.
It really does.
Trying to find the love that they had. They fell out of a helicopter.
They were flying through the sky when their helicopter crashed. Yeah, the whole thing.
Yeah.
All you got to throw in is the dog died, and you got a country hit. So yeah.
Yeah, but dog can't die, man. He can't. People will riot. They said so.
Riot. That's true. If dog dies,
that'd be.
We haven't seen Dog for a while. I wonder. You think Carol's going to bring Dog with her?
No.
Okay.
Of course not. Everybody's going to forget about Dog.
All right, you say that, but have you met some of these fans?
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, the fans want her to bring the dog along. I'm saying it's not going to happen. Hopefully she'll let him know. She'll be like, listen, I couldn't bring him. This is the Book of Carol, not the Book of Carol and Dog.
Dog.
If season 3 can be the Book of Dog.
I like that.
Yeah, and then
the chew toy of Dog.
The chew toy of dogs. Speaking of which, I normally give like a little disclaimer if there's anything happening in my house, because at this point everybody is so used to me recording the podcast they actually forget when I'm recording the podcast. So stomp up the stairs, my wife comes in and out at all times. My brother-in-law is rehabbing our bathroom across the hall from me. Hopefully not too much noise. But we are dog sitting this week. So
nice.
If there are any dog noises you hear, I'm sorry.
Only some of them are by me.
Yes. That's true. Some of them will be by Bryce, who is an adorable border collie, and he's downstairs somewhere, hopefully, being kept quiet. Not
Ruh-roh.
That's Rihanna. We're broadcasting. Anyway, let's not fall down that road, because I know you will. Before we get into our points on the episode, let's talk first what the writers and directors were for this episode. If there were multiples, if there were singles.
They were singles this time, and I think everybody here who's listening is pretty aware that the episode was written by, of course, one of our stars and zombie pals, Denai Guerrero. So we all know what a powerhouse writer she is. She's won awards for some of her stage plays and things. She has written screenplays, and I mean she's very, very accomplished. And this episode is no exception. It really is an amazing television script, and obviously you can see that she gets these characters and knows how to write for them in ways that when they're saying the lines, you believe that they're saying the lines, and so we know her, we love her. And our director is the same guy who directed last week's episode. It's this gentleman named Michael Slovis. And just a quick recap. He's directed 3 episodes of the main show. He did 1 each in season 6, 7, and 8. So again, kind of in the heart of the Gimple years. So someone Mr. Gimple's familiar with. And then he directed 2 episodes of The Ones Who Live. He directed again 1.3 By and 1.4 What We. So these are his 2 episodes he's contributed to. And I also believe he is an executive producer of the show. And just looking back, as I was watching the credits this time around, to make sure I got everything correct in terms of who was directing, it struck me that just about every person who has written or directed an episode of the show, of the 4 episodes so far, are executive producers. So
Wow.
very similar to Fear. Fear did the same kind of thing where they clearly had their group of creators, and it just, they just kind of rotated through, and, you write number 1, I'll write number 2 and 3, and just so on. So
Right.
we're seeing a similar thing going on here. So if you do look at the credits at the beginning of the show and you get to the executive producer section, a lot of the names you're like, hey, that sounds familiar. It's because they probably have written or directed one of the previous episodes you're watching. So that is your writer and your director.
So let's talk tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree.
All right.
I enjoy when TV shows do that, when there's gonna be a dramatic moment or something out of the ordinary, and they juxtapose it with like a real, like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for the song? It's very plain Jane. It's very square. It's very upbeat, and there's no controversy in that song. Like there's nothing there. You couldn't find controversy in Tie a Yellow Ribbon if you tried. So to take that and sort of put it against a scene where they're jumping out of the helicopter, they're dragging their asses up the stairs, they're pulling themselves into that apartment, and then as soon as they face each other and they have that look, like he's like, what have you done? And she's like, can't believe you said, like, it's the start of this big dramatic moment, and it starts off with such a, like, Pollyanna kind of song is the only way I can sort of think of describing it. Just, positivity all over the place. So I thought that was a really, really interesting choice to sort of start everything off with that song bouncing around in your head while they look like they want to tear each other apart in that first few moments there. So yeah. So
yeah, I thought, again, you're right. It's a very, kind of an innocent song, from a very simpler time, right? And
simple, yeah. I guess simple is probably a really good word for it. I like that, yeah.
Yeah, and to kind of have this sort of light, song playing, yet there are very heavy things going on the screen. You're right. It's a fun little way to kind of throw that in there. And then I don't know if you picked up on this, you probably did, but the episode begins with the song Tie a Yellow Ribbon, and at the end of the very last scene, they are driving away in a yellow pickup truck.
Yeah, I did notice that. I thought that was a nice little bookend there.
Yeah, I did too.
It's a nice. So. She knows how to write.
She does well, and that maybe that might have been a directorial thing. We don't know.
True, but I liked it. It was a good choice.
Yeah, I did too.
Kind of cheeky.
Well, and when I first saw it, I thought, okay, is it just me? Am I like reading too much into this, and and seeing this, and it was not planned. But then I thought, no, there are no coincidences. Everything was planned. So yeah, I agree, and I like the fact that they did that.
Yeah.
And then I also love too that the first line of the whole episode of dialogue is when they're in the room and Michonne just staring daggers at Rick and goes, I felt we needed a time out.
They tweeted out, or I can't remember if it was a tweet or it was on Facebook, and it's literally just a screenshot, and it's just the start. And it's listed as Act 1. So there you go. She wrote a play. And it says Act 1, interior, abandoned apartment, near dawn. Tight on their faces. Michonne says, we needed a time out. And I'm like, yes, that's perfect.
Yeah.
And everything that leads up to it, it's just like she thought they needed a time out. That's all. Just gonna take a pause. That's all.
Well, again, it's just, he's being very un-Rick, and she doesn't know why, and so this is her way of kind of giving a chance to clear the air. And boy, is that air going to get cleared. Now, you thought those Roombas were doing a good job. Just you wait.
Yeah. It's the Roomba cleaning the room while they're cleaning like their souls was kind of a weird metaphor going on. So at the end of last week we were like, okay, so they're jumping out of the helicopter. Here's hoping that they don't fall on a bunch of trees. So we were nervous about that, and then come to find out there were over some body of water. So that's much better than falling into a tree. I'll take that. But I'm still, do we know where they are? I put where the hell are we, but they're obviously not terribly far from the outpost that they were at in the last episode.
Yeah. They're still like in the mountains there.
I was thinking maybe they were over one of the Great Lakes or something.
No,
I don't know, but it looks too mountains.
They're still very far west. They're, in the Sierra Nevadas, either separating like California and some of the states right next to like Colorado or something like that. In that area. That was what I took from it, just because of the view and everything. So, but you're right. They didn't really bother to tell us. And again, wherever it was wherever, that little community was kind of tucked away, and was by design, was not easily accessible. Those people wanted to kind of be left alone. And I think that's why, Rick points out there are no bullet holes. The buildings are all intact. There's no signs of fire and burned out cars. So clearly there wasn't a lot of fighting and looting going on here, and like they said, everybody starved to death. That's why they all died. It wasn't they were killed. They ran out of resources.
So it is interesting. And I think, and I've said this before with other moments, they gave us a little bit of a description of sort of who they were to sort of explain away some of the stuff that was there. But we also didn't get we don't have those people's perspective. We got that note, which was great, but it's one single person's perspective. So I'm okay with, we can move forward in the canon and not get more description on this. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay. I think it just was a temporary place and it'll be remembered, but it's not something that's crucial to the story.
No, it's completely
it's like a way
secondary.
Station.
Yeah. It could have been anywhere. Although I did find this interesting. I don't know if you saw this in online or anything, but if they had gone past the gym, in the episode, the very next room was this computer, and there was a timer, and like every 20 minutes you had to enter these 6 numbers to reset the timer. And it was, you had to spend it was like an experiment, because clearly these guys were, this is like the modern Dharma initiative. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because you got Terry Quinn in here, so there's going to be a lost crossover.
It's got to be some lost Easter eggs,
Right. I mean, it just has to be. So.
Yeah.
But
it'd be hilarious if at some point someone goes to open up a lock and they're like, okay, so it's 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42, and someone will be like, I know those numbers from somewhere.
Those numbers seem so familiar.
Yeah, they sound familiar.
It's as soon as she read the note, and of course we kind of learn a little bit more about it and everything. My first thought went to Dharma and Lost, and I'm just it very similar. Although if you think about it, we learned way more about these people than they ever told us about the Dharma people in Lost. So that show ran for 9 years. Okay, so
that's true. That's true.
But so you're right. We kind of have this powerhouse opening, that they jump out of the chopper and they survive the fall, and then they get themselves in there. The only thing about it that bothered me was that there were a lot of coincidences there, and my cold dead heart says there are no coincidences in life, and so some of it could have been avoided if they would have just had a line of dialogue of the pilot talking to Rick over the headset saying, wow, we're hitting a bad storm, So I'm going to try and go under it. We're going to be like, just a treetop level. And then that way, because think about it. She just grabs him and jumps out. She doesn't know where they are. She doesn't know what's beneath them. And she doesn't know how high they are. If they'd been at like 1,000 feet, they would have died. It doesn't matter if you hit the water. It's still going to, it's going to be like concrete. You're still going to die. Yeah. And then on top of it, we come to find out that like literally like 3 seconds after they jumped out, the helicopter crashed into the damn building.
Yeah.
And it just like, that's a lot of coincidences right there that all lined up in their favor. And I get it. They're the stars of the show. They're not going to die and all that. But it's just like, wow, guys, that was the only part of the episode where I thought the writing could have been better.
One of my nits too was sort of like it started at the beginning and it went through the whole episode. It didn't ruin the episode for me in any way, shape, or form, but I felt not that it was not so much lazy, but a little more like convenient. But so I know that this was sort of like a communal, dharmic kind of society. So I guess it's safe to say that probably most of the apartments were very similar to this. Mm-hmm. So all I can think is, was this the only one that was left unlocked? Because they're on a different floor.
Oh yeah.
So they walked. Did they take the stairs? Did they take the elevator? I mean, because things were working for them later. We just got like sort of an impression. It was like sort of flashes of them and sort of they make it into this apartment. But I think if this apartment was on like the first floor, I would be more believing of like, I'm just going to go ahead and pick, or do they show them? They should have shown them for like 20 minutes trying different doors to get in or whatever.
Well, and also, what about all the ghouls that are outside? Why didn't they follow them right inside when they came? There definitely are some things.
Yeah, there's some conveniences. I agree, and for this whole episode to have worked as well as it did, they needed to have like an enclosed space. They needed to be away from the danger of the ghouls, so they needed to be up a few floors, and so I get the logistics of how they sort of needed to be in this space for that. I just I wanted there to be some sort of like throw me a bone to make it like believable that's like they specifically picked this apartment or da da da. You know what I mean? Like something. Yeah.
Anything. My thought would be that since when she reads the note, the suicide note that the Dr. Patel leaves, this is clearly like a hippy dippy commune. And so my guess is that all of the rooms are identical because everyone's entitled to the same stuff.
Probably.
There aren't better apartments and lesser, you know what I mean? It was, no, we're all cool. We all get the same. So the layout's the same. They all have the Alexa thingy there that controls the temperature and, all of that stuff that says welcome home and all that, you know what I mean? So it literally, this is the apartment that, like you said, they cut out all the bits of them searching around to find an apartment that was open, and this is the one they found. So.
And my little leap that I made in my head to make it work was that everything's automated, so it locked for all the other people because they died, so they're probably dead and inside those apartments, and Dr. Patel was the last person and went downstairs to kill herself. So when you write the suicide note and then leave, and then you leave the door unlocked, right? It might have even been wide open. Who knows?
Yeah.
So I sort of explained it away in my head that way. I was like, oh, it was open and ready for them to jump right in there. Yeah. So they get started on their timeout, and it's, man, what a roller coaster, because there's so much arguing, misunderstanding. I did appreciate that she didn't wait very long. I mean, she was sort of backed into it because she used the word children.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, children? And so she does bring up RJ, and it has no effect on him, which was just a sign. Like, I liked that a lot of what a lot of what Michonne's lines were sort of speaking to like what was going on in my head. She was saying like, something's happening here. Why you're not asking any questions about your son? You don't, want to know things. And so I'm glad that it came up because it was a catalyst for her to sort of propel this argument into a different arena, because then it becomes about like, Judith is, I don't want to say a known quantity, but she's a little ass kicker and people will take care of her. And, he has a picture of her in his mind, but he can't compute having a child that he hasn't met yet.
Right.
He can't, because that is so painful. And he's already using the PTSD response of when something is painful and you compartmentalize it and you box it off and you make it so that it doesn't hurt you anymore. And we didn't know what that thing was until we get to the end of the episode, really. But I like that it sort of started off strong with, talking about RJ and sort of going down that road.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked the beats of the argument itself. It at 1 minute there's emotion and it's up high, and then the next minute it's down low. And you made a note about the picking up the book, the Ramona the Pest, the
Yes.
Beverly Cleary book, and when she picked up that book and started talking about it, and her thing, I loved it. She says, "I thought I was going to be a writer." I'm like, "You are a writer, Denai."
Oh, but that's not Denai talking. That's Michonne
I know, it's
talking.
Michonne.
And then she's going to be in computer science, and she kind of ran through her thing there, and I just like that. Then she finds the notepad and the pen, and she's like, she goes, you've become a bit of a creative writer these days. And she goes, that note in the getaway boat, poetry.
I think a sign of a well-written episode too was, there were definitely some action moments in this episode, but a majority of it was them talking through their problems and the issues.
Yeah.
So a lot of what I have very little notes because I actually had way more, but they were all quotes.
Oh, I know. Yeah. There's
and
so
I was
many
like,
good
okay,
lines.
I'm like, I gotta stop writing down lines from the show because it's, it's more about, oh, that line really hit. Oh, that line really hit. And those are a few of them. The thing about, I thought I was going to be a writer, and then you've become quite a bit of a creative writer. The note in the getaway, poetry. Just.
Then she's like, why don't you just dash off a note to your children and explain to them why you're not coming home? And that's when she, reveals.
Yeah. And then
reveals.
Like,
and then his only response is, children? Like, what now?
What the what?
Although, I suppose, yeah, because Carl's already dead, so you wouldn't include it, because I'm going to be like, he already knew he had children, because he had Carl and he had, a little ass kicker. Although, we all know that Judith is technically Shane's kid and not his, but whatever.
Yeah. So technically, this is really only his second child.
Exactly. Yes, that he's fine.
I mean, he just likes to make boys over and over.
That's all he does.
He ain't got no girl DNA in him.
That's right. He always sires a dude.
But yeah, just like there's so many. I mean, there's situations happening, but it was it was the lines, it was the things they were saying to each other as they went through this. I wouldn't even really call it an argument, because that's not really. It was like this. Oh, you know what? What's it called? Gimple had a great word for it in the post-show, like behind the episode. He called it. He said, Denai said that this is their reckoning.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a really good way to put it. And they're both sort of reckoning with each other. So it's less an argument and more.
Well, and you can certainly say that hotel room got all reckoninged at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, again, the setup of this episode, the way that Denai structures the episode it's really great in that coming into this episode, really the audience is totally on Michonne's side of this argument. Because we're fans of the show. We know that they can do anything. We know that they're not going to get stopped.
Right.
And so why is Rick not jumping on board the train and the train's ready to depart the station? Let's go. And so the structure of the episode is her character just unloading all of the stuff that she's noticed since she's found him. She finally got him back, yet it's not him. And she's like, I don't understand. And basically it's our window into him going, yes, we don't understand, Rick. Why are you acting this way? Because the excuses we've gotten so far, they don't add up to it. They shouldn't be enough to intimidate you. Why is it that you are, so adamant on going back to the CRM and having her leave and you not go with her? And so to really make Rick's emotional confession at the end when he, she has to like chisel it out of him, right? I mean, he's buried it so deep because it's so painful and potentially fatal to him that she has to really, really work to get it out. But that this whole first act is all set up where she is just laying out all the arguments that we all are having about, look, what the hell, man, what's going on? And, I don't understand you, and like you said, bringing up the fact that, she's like, I just told you had a son and you have zero follow-up questions.
Yeah.
And so on. Why is that? So that I thought was just a brilliant part of the writing, in that the first, 30 minutes of this episode is all Michonne, just letting him have it with these haymaker, after haymaker, uppercut lines that are just pummeling him, and he's just like, not responding. He's just like, whatever, go ahead, get it out. So it's I thought it was really great, and I think just talk about lines. There's, I think right after she gets on him for not asking about his son, she says like, I found you, but I didn't. And I think so many of the fans have that same thought. Of like, who is this Rick Grimes? Because this is not Rick Grimes,
right?
That we've seen, right? Rick, like the Rick Grimes we've seen, he kind of disappeared like after he cut his hand off.
Yeah. Remember last week when I was talking about how I felt that the best way they could have this series explain, they're showing it through like he's made multiple attempts to try and get out and it hasn't worked. But I thought the only way they could describe Rick staying somewhere as long as he had, we were talking about like the amnesia thing. So, I was fully expecting, Michonne to come upon him and they'll have this moment where she'll say Rick and he'll say, no, my name is Steve, and so it's funny because it still is true. She found Rick, but really she didn't find Rick. She found, CRM soldier Grimes, not Rick.
Not Rick.
So it's a really, 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 it's a layered line because it has so many interpretations of it. It really, really hit that moment on like a nail on the head.
Yeah.
I also liked the juxtaposition of the, part of their argument is, structurally, she still has her PRB, her little, press the button and they can find you anywhere thing. And he lost his in the fall or in the water or whatever. So they only have one. So he asks for hers. They argue about it a bunch. They disagree, as it were. She does eventually give it to him. But the whole thing is all about the choice between he just thinks everything would be safer and the only path forward is for him to go back and for her to go back to Alexandria, back to the kids. So the PRB starts to be this like stand-in for all of all of our angst and all of our disagreement is housed in this little box right here, you know. And there's this great line that she had where, you know, it had been a while. They'd been there for a bit, and he still hadn't pressed the button because of the things that, you know, Michonne had been saying. And, you know, he's very, very slowly starting to come around, but he still has a long way to go. But you can see he's struggling. He's really struggling, even though he's saying, like, with, you know, with his mouth, he's saying, you know, the only way is for me to go back. You can see on his face that it's like he's struggling with saying that. He's starting to. And she has a really great line where she says, you say you can't go home, meaning Alexandria. She says, but I don't think you can go back either to the CRM, because just the time of how long it had been, like there was like a window and he missed it, is what she's really saying. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't think you can go back to Alexandria. I don't think you can go back to the Civic Republic. You're stuck, you know. Yeah. you're out of choices here.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I like too how, you know, he is very adamant. You're right. About, like, we got to push the button. We got to go back. You know, I have to go back, and, you know, you should make a run for it. And then he, you know, explains, he brings up Jadis and finally kind of gives her a little bit more info on what that's all about. And, you know, he basically says, look, you know, she knows, obviously. And she told me that if I leave, she'll tell everybody about where we're from, and they will go, you know, and he's like, look, they attacked you guys and killed all of the people you were with. They will do the same thing to Alexandria. You know, they will go nerve gas Alexandria or you know, chlorine gas Alexandria, right? They will wipe them out. And so then what I thought was really a nice touch was that Michonne comes up with the plan that I think all of us came up with, which is like, okay, so we go back, we find the written evidence that she has in case of her demise, we destroy that, and then we kill her, and then we leave. And, you know, I'm sure, like, I could see all across, you know, TV land, people watching going, yeah, that's a good plan. You know?
Yeah, just do that.
Right?
Why don't you?
And again, these are the people that, you know, multiple people on the show have said that when they're together, they can do anything. So it's not as half-baked as it sounds, right? But even then, he's like, nope, can't do it. Won't work. And he won't even try that. You know, and I think it's at that point, and I love this too, that Michonne like literally is like, wow, this is going so much different than I thought it was going to go in my head. You know, she's like, this is just not at all where I thought we would be. I thought it would be the run together and kiss, and then we, you know, go back to Alexandria. You know, so
yeah, it's tough, and she gets. It's great because right around, we're getting near the point where she just basically is like, oh, yeah, that's right. This is an action show that has zombies in it. So we have to have some action. So she finally is like, forget it. I'm done with you.
I'm out. Yeah.
I'm
going out, home to my kids now. Yeah.
If you're not going to go, then you're right. I should go. Why am I wasting my time? I need to go back to my children if they'll still have me, kind of thing. Grabs a knife, you know, and she's off, you know.
Well, and she breaks the lamp and gets a stick.
Yeah.
So she has like a staff, and she has like the Michael Myers starter knife. Yeah.
Yes. And she goes, and he does the thing where he's behind the closed door. And he's like looking at the door, and he's deciding what to do, and he's like, oh God, I can't. And he's struggling so bad. And of course, you know, Michonne gets to the end of the hall, and she turns and looks back because she's kind of expecting that he'll come through the door and like, oh my God, Michonne, I'm so sorry, I love you.
Yeah,
let's go.
And she says that to him. She says that, you know, I'm leaving, and you know that you should be going with me, and by the time you figure that out, it's going to be too late. Like she drops that line on him and then storms out of there. And that I did have a little nit to pick there in that. I mean, she just opens that door out into the hallway and just storms out. And I'm like, okay, you are in like ghoul land, you know. What if there's like 10 ghouls right outside the door there and you just walk right into them, you know? But again,
she is too emotional in this
she
moment.
was. And is star of the show. I get it, but I was just like, ooh, I wouldn't have done that, you know. Like look through the peephole first, you know. But
exactly.
But yeah, so she storms away, and then you're right. You can like see the little hamster on the wheel running in his head, you know, as he's like, damn it, you know, I gotta go after her. I can't go after her. I gotta go after her, you know, and he does. And I thought this was a real nice camera shot in that he turns and runs out the door, and the camera, he runs off of out of frame, and then the camera pans just a little bit to the left, and behind him is the big bay window of the apartment, right? And you can see the water that's out in front, the lake or whatever it is, obviously where they fell, you know, off the helicopter, and they'd already looked out the window and seen the crashed helicopter in the building. So this is a massive window, and it kind of the camera pans just a little to the left, and you see coming towards the building is the CRM attack helicopter.
Yes.
And so, you know, okay, something's happening. Okay. And then, and the first thought I had is, did he push the button? You know, are they looking for him? Did he do it? You know, and of course, you know, then he goes running out after her. And just as he gets to her, the helicopter fires a salvo of rockets at the wreck. That's like literally sticking out of the building on like the 10th floor or something, right? I mean, it's very 9/11-y, right? And and I think he explain later that like they destroy all traces of themselves in this instance or something. So there's a reason why they did that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's sort of like he knows like a crashed helicopter like that couldn't be sort of salvaged and taken away would be destroyed so that no one would know that had happened.
Yeah, yeah. But it should also tell him that the CRM is assuming that everybody on board the helicopter is dead.
Right.
You know, because they didn't land, they didn't search for survivors, they just showed up, they fired some rockets, and as far as we know, they left, right? Because we never see them again. So,
correct.
But this, of course, this is what's setting in motion the other dramatic element of the show, and that now the building is slowly, collapsing, right? It's the structural integrity has been destroyed because of these rocket attacks, and it's slowly, literally crumbling into little pieces. So, which is going to force them to, either shirt or get off the pot. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They are in this, Did she get any? Oh, the doors were broken open.
Yeah, the glass breaks. Yeah.
She was sort of contemplating, the ghouls that had gathered by the front door, and I'll have to, fight my way through this, or or she was just sort of contemplating it for a hot second before Rick showed up, and the explosion blew the doors out, and there's glass everywhere, but now the ghouls are coming in, and so they have to sort of like run away. And my first thought, like, I know, you made a comment about leaving the knife and the stick.
Oh yeah.
So she had no weapon, which was the reasoning behind that. Like in the further scene when they discuss it, that's clearly the reason that those were dropped, so that she would be without.
Yes.
So I didn't think that at all. I was thinking about her being without a weapon. I was thinking when they showed the knife on the floor like that, that the very next step was going to be that the soldiers were going to just go around and make sure there were no survivors that maybe like jumped out of the plane or the helicopter. Just they have to do a sweep. It's part of their thing. I just absolutely was convinced that the next thing was going to be a sweep by the soldiers to make sure everything was hunky-dory, and they were going to see that knife and go,
somebody was here.
Somebody was just here.
Yeah.
And that's why I thought that was going to be there. I'm glad that it wasn't. That it was just for, the further scene with the action scene with the chandelier when she, no weapon in her hand. But yeah,
well, no, at that point she got the piece of rebar, and no, not our friend, but an actual piece of rebar.
Right, an actual piece of rebar. But leading up to that, they were running around. She didn't have. They had to sort of hide because she had no weapon at the time.
They had no. The only weapons the only weapon they had at all at that point was Rick's kind of switchblade hand thing.
Yeah, his Merle knife, as it were.
Yeah. I mean that was the only thing, but I almost, when I watched it the second time, and I was kind of trying to pick up if I missed anything, I kind of got the idea that this was Denai's way of kind of segueing into some of the lighter moments of the episode where they're still very angry with each other, but as they get away from all those ghouls, he is like in total CRM soldier mode, and he's like, no, this position isn't defensible, and we have to find a way to and she just turns and looks at him and goes, I don't even have a weapon, Commando. And then he looks at her and goes, Commando, really?
Yeah.
and so they're kind of like snipping at each other, and you can tell that they these are two people that they like and care for each other, but right now they are pissed at each other.
But I and as much as like, yes, they are pissed at each other, I felt like those little moments of like of lightness, of that kind of banter or whatever, to me, I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna be fine, because if they hated each other for real, he wouldn't even respond. She'd say, I don't have a weapon, Commando, and he would just be like actually blank faced.
Yeah.
But the fact that he sort of jumps in with the witty repartee shows that it was almost like that was the symbol that they were on their way back. They were almost there. They just needed a little bit more emotional breakthrough for him. And we get it. It takes a little bit longer. So
so they finally go into the gym, because there's all of the exercise, like the treadmills and stuff in there, and this is where she finds the note by Dr. Patel, as well as the the corpse of Dr. Patel, and we kind of get all the expo we're going to get about this weird place and what's going on there. And I wrote down one of the lines there, because she finishes reading the note and then she kind of looks at him and goes, when people try to save the world their own way, it tends to go to shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I mean, again, that is a very pointed line at him. Which is, he's trying to save her his way, and she's like, yeah, that doesn't work. That you have to do it. It has to be a group. It has to be, us working together, or it doesn't work. And so again, and he's not really buying yet. He's still in customer service trying to return all these things. But again, I kind of like the Patel ghoul. It was a weird death thing in that she basically electrocuted herself with like a like the weird headphones she put on her temples and zap. You can see it. I mean, just bizarre. But kind of falls into the whole concept that these were these kind of weird techie guys and gals that. Clearly invented like charging stations, a year before charging stations were invented in real time. So,
right.
So, yeah, I mean, I like the fact that they went that extra step with the production design to kind of go, she could have just shot herself in the head. She could have hung herself or done anything that we've seen 1,000 times on this show. But they didn't. They went this kind of weird, kind of techie way to kill yourself. That's completely superfluous, but makes sense here, right?
Absolutely. I wanted to make a point about, like, obviously they're in the midst of this like emotional trauma. And it dawned on me that it's a little bit pointed, a little bit on the nose, but I still think that it's a really great metaphor. That the building's like crumbling around them.
Right.
Like no matter what they're doing, everywhere they go, that like there's this crumbling building and whatever. And I thought that was really cool. But to your point about the scientist, one of the things I thought was interesting about that when they get into the gym and they find Dr. Patel, obviously, I liked how at first I was expecting I was expecting the doctor to sort of like wake up and like lash out. But then it dawned on me that the smartness of what she did was it was a halo, like a like almost like a electrocution like you would have in a prison or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it zapped the brain.
It like burned out her brain so it couldn't revive. Yeah.
Correct. So she found the one way that she could both commit suicide and also zap her, like kill her brain,
right?
But without having to like, like what was it in that episode where the dude with Judith, he was trying to like fall on the knife and he couldn't do it because he was crying or whatever. Remember it was during the Whisperer War, she was alone in that shack with the older dude.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty hard thing to do. And it looks like they didn't have any access to guns or weapons because you haven't seen any there. So it's pretty, the more I thought about it, the more ingenious it was. But the cool part was that it was unexpected. So many times you see characters in a scene, they're in, they come upon a body like that. And they're having like a discussion about, either, the body that's in front of them or about the situation around them. And then it's the jump scare. It's the and then it all of a sudden animates and comes towards them. And that didn't happen, which I thought was cool because that's not, if it's one thing they didn't need in that moment, it was sort of like a stereotyped horror zombie moment or whatever. It was a lot more, it was very well thought out and it had a lot more meat and weight to it in the midst of this struggle they're going through. They have this person who also struggled and chose this one way out. So it just, I liked it. I thought it was a really, really, really interesting choice. Just didn't want to get away from that scene and not say anything about it. So.
No, I agree.
Yeah. So they make their way out of the gym, and then they have to, and there's still like, there's little quips here and there's little digs on each other. And they're trying to get out. They do like a work together kind of thing. He breaks off a piece of a weight bench and uses that to sort of push. And they have long pieces of rebar that they pulled from in there. That's where they finally get weapons again. And she's got the weapon, and I think he just used his.
He's got his Merle hand, yeah.
His sticky point on the end of his fist.
The thing he like knocks like the seat back of like a weight bench.
Yeah.
And so they both pick it up and they use it kind of like a shield, and they just kind of use it to push their way out because there's a whole bunch of ghouls up against the door. And so they do that to create space. And you're right. And they are. And then at this point they're working together, and he's saying, I got the one on the right, and then she does the one on the left. And before that, again, there's a funny moment where they both end up killing a ghoul that's in the hallway at the same time. And she's like, I said I had that. And he's like, I said I had it. And he pulls his Merle knife out, and she gets blood on her face. And she's like, really? And so they're working together, but not really.
Yes.
They're not there. Then they have the conversation in the weight room. And again, he makes the point of, you got to go back because it's the only way for you to be safe. And that's when she lays the, great line of, the only time I feel safe is when I'm with you. Aww. But again, it's her, trying to get him to respond. Right. And so then they come out of the weight room. Right. And now they're kind of working together, and they're trying to get back to the room. And I think, doesn't he say something like, the part of the building, it's almost like two towers in this building, and the tower that where the weight room is, that's where the helicopter crashed and where they fired the rockets, and so that's crumbling and is going to get destroyed first. The other tower is more stable at this point, so they're trying to get back to the room they were in.
Yeah, so they can sort of get away from the crumbling for
Yeah.
the time being. Yeah.
Right. So, but this, of course, then sets up the chandelier sequence where,
which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's just like, of course they get trapped by the chandelier. It's like, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
And of course she's like, you have to go, and he's like, I'm not leaving you, and he's trying to fix it, and I mean, how about the scene when she runs the one ghoul through the rebar, and then the other ghoul comes up behind it, and she gets it, but she doesn't get it in the head. She gets it in like the chest, and so it's slowly pushing the other ghoul down the rebar and getting closer and closer and closer to her face. And she's trapped. She can't move. She's stuck, and you're kind of like, oh, this is getting a little tense.
Yeah, I loved it because in that you're still nervous. Like, yes, like I said at the beginning, these are the main characters. Is something going to happen to Rick or Michonne? Probably not, but they still have the whole, like, how are we going to resolve the ultimate, like, question of the whole series, which is how do you get away from the CRM and not have soldiers show up at Alexandria? It's a conundrum. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, so could Rick die? Maybe. We don't know. Mm-hmm. So I think even though the probability is small, it's not zero for those two right now because we don't know.
Certainly not for him. He died in the comics. And at this point in the show, I think we're beyond the Commonwealth. Like, I think we're beyond like the fight with the Commonwealth. So it's peaceful times pretty much right now. So they could go. There's no more show to tell on the main series. So something could happen to one of them and they could bring the body back to Alexandria to be buried by, whatever. So there's still some danger to be had for either one of them. And this was a tense scene, and it was crafted really well. And yes, a chandelier falling is a really great metaphor. And it's kind of like, really, a chandelier? Yeah.
Sort of like you were able for a few hours to enjoy like the technological wonderment of this place, and now it's going to kill you. Because prior to it falling, that chandelier was working in perfect working order.
Right. Oh yeah.
Interesting. So when it falls and Michonne can't move, this is where these two shine. This is where the whole they can do anything comes through, because they won't allow the other one to be harmed. It's just not gonna happen. They're not gonna, and it's not so much like I'll die before I'll let that happen, but they're just not gonna let that happen. So even though it's a tense moment, it's a relationship like healing moment there too. He works so hard to get her out of there, and that it's like the second or third time that she's like, you have to go, or I don't want you to, I can't get hurt, whatever it was that she was like, I don't want you to see me get hurt, and he was like, that is never going to happen. Like his response to one of the things she asks, and he's like, that's never going to happen.
I think she keeps telling him, you have to go, you have to leave me, and then he goes, no, that's never going to happen.
Which is adorable and sweet and very
and stupid.
It is, and it's also stupid because it's like, if we both die, what's happened? Are we done?
Then who takes care of the kids?
I mean, we can't leave them with Carol forever. She kills all the kids.
She does, and she can't be making them cookies when they're like 30. I mean, it's just not going to work. So
so they do. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I like the idea that when we first get in the building, when they first get there, like you said, it all is working. The chandelier's lit up, they have electricity. The Alexa or whatever it is in the room it says welcome, and then it tells them, your, desired temperature will be achieved in like 10 minutes, and then it keeps updating them. And then after, when they come back, right, the chandelier has fallen, a lot of the lights in the lobby are out, and when they get back in the room, all the messages that start saying is, error, unable to get to program temperature, what I mean? So all of the tech is now breaking down. Granted, the building got destroyed by rockets, but I'm just saying, it's like, like you said, it's an interesting metaphor that they get there and everything appears to be working perfectly, kind of like the two of them. And then we see, no, actually everything's breaking down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, like I said, it's the perfect metaphor for what they're going through. The things are sort of falling around their ears, and you have to deal with the building falling apart, but you have to deal with what's going on in their relationship stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So they are able to get Michonne out. They make their way back to the apartment area, sort of shut the door, and realize it was right after that he pulled her out, right? That they sort of realized in the hallway, like, did that moment happen in the hallway or in the apartment, that they sort of looked into each other's eyes and realized, oh yeah, we need to go to the bedroom right now?
No, that was they got back to the apartment.
Okay.
It's kind of funny because there were two moments earlier in the episode where when I first watched it, I'm like, they're gonna go at it right now.
Yeah.
The first one is when she changes out of her wet outfit, and he's kind of looking at her, and you get the, and again, the skeptic in me, I'm like, wow, Michonne, you shaved your legs. Good for you. Who knew, right, that this was going to happen? Yeah. But and Denai's beautiful and everything. And you can tell that Rick is like, oh yeah, that's my wife. I love her. There she is right there. And he kind of had that, going back to the ad, the bow chicka wow now kind of look in his eyes, right? And then there's another moment too where they're kind of staring at each other and they're very angry, and it's just I just was waiting for him to be like, "Are you as turned on as I am?"
Which would totally happen in like any other show,
right? Right. And again, I mean, I think anyone that's ever been in a relationship, when you have those emotional moments like that where you're just you're having an argument, can be about the most minuscule and irrelevant thing, but you get all charged up, and then you're just like, oh yeah, this is happening, and then you're like, wow, later on. So again, I was waiting for that to go, and then finally they get back, and then it's go time, and cue the music to have Barry White start playing, right?
Yeah.
Although I have to say, this is the cold and dead heart inside of me. They start with the kissy and all that stuff, and then he kind of stops for a second and is almost like, what's happening, and then she kind of calms him down, and they keep going, and my cold and dead heart, I was waiting for her to be like, what's wrong? And I was waiting for him to be like, I don't know, when Thorne does it, she doesn't do it like this.
That's so funny. It's funny because I'm like sick and twisted in my head when it comes to like matters of like sex and whatever. So my brain went in lots of different directions as soon as they made it to the bedroom, and it was clearly he was having an emotional moment.
Yeah, I know
right there, where
this.
she's, and she's like holding his hand. She's got his hand on her chest, and it's an emotional moment where he sort of stops and is like, he was breathing like weird, and he was having trouble there for a second. But for a hot second, I was like, "Aw,
poor guy."
Right now,
well, and you think about it, it's like, it's probably the first romantic thing for him with another person in a long time, right? So,
yeah, 8 years. It's been 8 years. That's how old RJ is.
Yeah. So,
it's at least 8 years. So so I was like, he can't. My first thought was that he couldn't perform, and he was like upset. But clearly after that, I was like, oh, okay, this is just an emotional moment, which that would be an emotional moment too. So, I don't want to make fun of that, of course. But then I'm not going to lie, I was very surprised because there is a moment where they sort of shifted position and he's on top.
He rolls her over, yeah.
There is a moment where they had the camera on his face and everything changed and he's all of a sudden smiling. And I was like, dude, like, if such a pig.
Out with
it basically was like, you basically just showed like on screen on his face, like, and I've just entered my wife. Like, just like, and I was like, are we watching porn right now? Like, what is happening?
Zombie porn.
And it was so like he was on the verge of making his O face, And I get it. It's been a long time and everybody wants to see them get busy. Like all the people who love their relationship and everything. And it's fine. Like I'm good with a good sex scene. Don't get me wrong. But I was like, that level of, I was like, first he's all emotional and then a second he's like, oh yeah. I'm like, no, off of his face. Like, could we just keep this more like, shadows and sides?
More PG-13, people.
Yeah. Less X, please. We're getting there.
Come on, we got to see Rashon, the beast with two backs. Okay, it's a very thing that the fans were clamoring for. So
yeah, and don't get me wrong, it was fine. It was fine. I just the one shot on his face, I was like, really? So that happens, and really everything that happens after they get busy is the sorry, it's the climax of the episode.
Hello.
It's the emotional climax of their reckoning that they had to have with each other.
Yeah. So they reckoninged a bunch of times there.
They wrecked that bed. So she just keeps saying, you're lying, go, this whole, like, our family would be, and our friends would be unsafe and they could bomb us. And it's, she just kept picking and you're lying. And finally, like, it took a really long time and he finally broke down and he finally let her know what it was that he had done. And it wasn't even so much that he'd done to himself, but he says they did to him. And he says that they took Carl away from him, that, this continued sort of trauma he's gone through over and over again. It's, he used to dream of Carl. He used to dream of walking with him and holding his hand, and it's such a beautiful moment. And they showed it on screen, and he's like, and then one day he wasn't there anymore. He'd sort of put him away in his head, like you do when you have trauma like that, and you take something and you file it away because there's too much emotion attached to it, and he filed it away. It just ended up, it wasn't there. So he was there in that moment and Carl was gone, and the CRM, in his mind, it took Carl from him. And they showed it in the scene that he's like walking along in his his outfit, his sheriff outfit, and he's holding little Carl's hand, and all of a sudden he just disappears and Rick's walking by himself. And I cried. It was just really well done. And he breaks down so hard. And his feeling was like, he just didn't want to get to a point where he lost Judith, and he lost Michonne, and he couldn't handle that because he you know, it was so well done. That scene was just so well done. And it was everything that we sort of needed to explain. And like I said at the beginning, this is not where I thought they were going to go. And it was so beautifully done and so unexpected, but makes sense. It fits right in there, and it makes sense with how he's acting and how he's behaving. And it was just done so well. Yeah. What are your thoughts on his
Oh yeah, I mean,
emotional breakdown there? Yeah,
it's incredible, you know. And you what I liked was it kind of gave us, you know, insight into, you know, his captivity over all these years. And you know, you're right. You know, first he would dream of Carl, dreaming of the life he had, and then eventually Carl is gone from his dreams. And he can't even remember what he looks like, right? And it's just gone. Then he says he dreamed of Michonne. And we actually saw some of those in episode 1, you know, where he says, you know, we fell in love many different ways. We met and it was always different, but we always were together. And then he says, and then you disappeared from my dreams. And then I wrote down this line. I didn't put it on our sheet because it's super long, because it's an amazing little speech. But he says, I can't live without you. Without you, I die. And I figured out how to do that. I know how to be dead and live now. And then he goes, you can't just come back here and make me come alive again if I don't know if I won't lose you again. What if I lose you and I can't figure out how to die all over again? I can't. I need to get ahead of it, Michonne. I can't. When I saw you, I got so scared and I needed to get ahead of it. I had to. At least if I think you will live on longer than me without knowing if you do, I can just believe that it's true, knowing. But seeing that loss, he goes, I can't. I won't survive that, Michonne. I just won't. And so, and again, I mean, he's crying, and I mean, I did not do it justice at all. I mean, it is an amazing performance by Andy Lincoln, and again, it just shows you, you know, how broken he was, and literally the only way he could survive in the CRM was to just like shut all that stuff off in his mind and in his heart, and then here she is, and he's just like, if I turn that back on again and then something happens, I won't make it.
You know? and it helps explain why he isn't or wasn't at first interested in getting any details about RJ, because it's like, nope, I can't.
I can't
go
lose
there. Another kid.
Yeah. Well, and again, he's already at the point where I'm never going back there. So just telling me about that is just gonna, you know, it's pain. It's just, you know, it's cruel.
It's torture.
So and again, it is. You're right. It's an amazing bit, and I love how when she put this story together, you know, and you mentioned, you know, Act 1, and so assuming this is Act 2. Act 1 is the Michonne show.
Yeah.
And Rick doesn't say a lot. Rick is, you know, kind of just taking the brunt of her anger and confusion, and it's great. And she has some really great stuff to say. And then we get to Act 2, and oh my God, did she write just a great part for Andy Lincoln, you know, to perform. And like you said, the chemistry that these two people have with each other and the talent that they have, it just made it so much better. So it was really good.
Yeah. And then the thing is that he's still in so much pain. And even though he's getting there, he's almost to the epiphany, he's almost there, he's still saying that he has to go back. He's still saying he's got to go. And really the only thing that pushes him to really realize what he needs to do is there's this beautiful moment after he's revealed that he lost Carl, and Michonne literally gives Carl back to him. And she gives him the phone with his drawing, and and is like, you can have him again. And he's amazed. He loves that he's getting it. And in that moment, she takes a beat and thinks about it and says, if Carl were here, what would he say? Yeah. And I think that's wonderful. I love the way that they have sort of kept Carl alive in talking about him. And so they're, oh, Carl. But with them as well, you know, obviously Judith was little and whatever, but Carl was like, I mean, he was becoming an adult, and they lost him together. They shared that grief together. And Carl is such an intertwined part of them as a couple. It's just so beautiful. And for her, and she wasn't saying it in any kind of disrespectful way. She wasn't trying to emotionally manipulate him, but he brought up the importance of Carl and losing him. She gives it back, and she asks him pointedly, you know, what would he say? And think about all of those letters that he wrote when he was dying, and he knew he was dying. Yeah. You know, the way he felt about things, you know, that affected Rick to the point where he let Negan live. Yeah. Carl's letter is why Negan's alive. So
I think JDM had something to do with it too.
Well,
but you're right.
Yeah,
you're right.
I'm sure. But it's like his, you know, how he felt about the world and the way it should be had such a profound effect on him. And this is no different. And how Carl would react in this moment should inform him on what is the next right thing to do. And it just, I just thought that was a wonderful, wonderful way. And you sort of see them, things are really starting to fall apart. The building's really falling apart. And it kind of like smash cuts. They're like, we got to get out of here. And the next time you see them, they've got these backpacks on. And I wrote that in my notes. I'm like, the backpacks are a positive sign. That they've decided that they're gonna make their way. They're gonna leave together. And he's taken off part of the uniform, so he's in a little bit more street clothing, and they've got these big, you know, rucksacks filled with, you know, supplies, I'm sure.
Well, there was no food there, so I'm not sure what's in them.
I'm curious what those supplies are, you know. I mean, it was a scientific facility. Maybe they were smart and grabbed some medicines.
Maybe.
And so who knows? Maybe some clothes and some blankets or whatever. But then they find the most the brightest colored, most convenient electric vehicle known to man. Sorry, hybrid vehicle known to man. And they drive away.
Well, don't forget that it has, like, you know, multiple cans of kerosene in the back seat.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that was like I don't know, of course moment. Like, of course, the one car they get into. First of all, it starts. You know, and I mean, I get it. It's plugged into the charging station, which already is an anomaly because they didn't exist in 2009 yet. But I will give them a pass on that. We just have to assume that these, you know, tech geek guys created the charging stations a year early or 2 years early, and they happen to look exactly like charging stations look like for real. Okay, whatever. I'll do it. So if it's plugged in and the charging grid works, I guess the battery could still be charged and ready to go. I do not know what the shelf life is of those things, right? Because you have to imagine it's been sitting there for years, right? But whatever, it fires right up, and they go away. And of course, as they're leaving, you see the building collapsing behind them, and
which I didn't include in my notes, but I felt like, really, just as they drive away, it collapses.
That
was one of my nitpicks too. I'm surprised I didn't write it down, but that's, come on, really?
Yep. And so then, you know, they're on their way back, and she kind of has the line of because it's a hybrid, and it runs on kerosene. It doesn't run on gasoline. It's kerosene.
Yep.
But there's enough fuel apparently in the back seat that she feels they have enough to get back to Alexandria, which, you know, if they're in the western states, that's a long ass trip they got to make to get there.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the miles per gallon is on a hybrid vehicle like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know the longest I think we've ever traveled on a road trip, probably our Yellowstone one. And it's like, I mean, you have to stop and get regular gasoline every 400 miles or so.
Okay.
And so you figure if they're in that sort of region, I was thinking like Colorado-ish, maybe, or closer. We're talking thousands of miles to get to Alexandria.
Yeah, right. You would think, and yet the 3 cans of kerosene is enough, I guess, for them to make it, according to her. So
yeah.
But now they're their relationship is perfect. Everything's been fixed, and they're back to business as usual.
And I mean that's it. That's all they really need to do. I mean, they should have made this the finale.
Right, and then literally it should have ended like Fear with everybody driving off down the road. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's what makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I think I hit most of my points on this. I know there's a couple on yours that I think we jumped over, namely the story about the ex.
Oh yeah. I always love when shows that have an established history, when they reference it, when it makes sense to reference it. And so he sees at the beginning, when he sees her undressing, he sees the scar of the X on her backside, and then when they're in bed afterwards, he asks her about it. And she, tells the story of Jocelyn, right?
Yeah.
And she goes over the whole thing, which is from season 9, episode 14, entitled Scars, where Jocelyn was this old college friend of Michonne's from the before time who shows up, and she ends up Michonne really encapsulated it very well, in that, she was a nutcase. And she tried to take all the kids, and eventually they killed her. And I like that Rick's response is good. So
yeah.
So I thought that was a nice touch, because clearly he, that happened after he had left, so he did not see that. So I like that he asked about it. And then I also liked that there was a lot of Nat in this episode. And that she uses the lighter at one point when they're in the dark. I think when they're at the chandelier, I think that's when she pulls it out, because obviously when the chandelier falls, the lights go out in the stairwell, and so she does that. But I also like that she references Nat and Nat's philosophy a couple of times in the episode. She talks about, he always told me that you'll know when it's time to go. And I think it's when she is when she storms out in the beginning, she kind of prefaces it with my friend Nat, he always said, when it's time to go, and now it's time for me to go, and I'm leaving, and then she leaves. And then I also like that she's like, done, And then I think there's another point too, where she brings up, he basically, which is a line we brought up from episode 2 when we reviewed it, when she's like, so you're going to go with me because you want to see how it ends? And he goes, no, I already know how it's going to end. And she brings up that line and says, he had my back, even though he knew probably not going to make it, that this is a dumb idea. I wanted to do it, and he believed in me, and he went with me. Right. And so I like that. I like that she, is not, that those characters aren't in the memory hole now and are never to be mentioned again. Right. And that they still are having an impact. So I, again, and that's just an eye and her writing. And she, she obviously has such a great understanding of the character and what Michonne's going through and has gone through, that, she can write it in her sleep and it'd still be great. So
of course. Yeah.
But other than that, I know. Yeah. The one scene, this one moment in the episode that I thought was just, I think the director could have done better, is where they're I think it's after they got busy and they're kind of like on the bed or something, and she takes out the PRB.
Yeah.
And she points out to him that, look, you've had this, you could have pushed the button a long time ago, but you didn't. And he I think that happens before, but they're sitting there and he takes it out in his hand and he shows it to her and he sets it down on the bed or wherever they are. And the way he holds it, it reflects like the light from the ceiling. Mm-hmm. And it almost, like when I first saw it, I'm like, oh my God, did he push it? Because it almost looked like it was blinking. And again, it's if you watch it again, it's totally just it's a black plastic surface that's reflecting the ceiling light of the room they're in, and it's not like a light, a movie making light. It's like an actual practical light that would be in that room if it were a real thing, right? And it's just, again, I'm like, guys, you should have staged this and lit this better, so it's obviously that it's not pushed, because I'm like, oh my God, he pushed the button, what the hell? I thought we had our breakthrough, but anyway, so that just, it was just a weird little moment. It's real fast, but it definitely took me out of the moment real quick, because I'm like, wait a minute, what had just happened? And I'd like freeze it and go back and watch it again, and I'm like, okay, it's just the light. We're fine, And then if you notice, they make a point of, after they are in the car and they're driving away, they cut back to the room and you see the PRB and they've like disassembled it. And it's like in pieces, like the circuit board is out and the wires are all cut. So they like totally destroy it before they leave. So there's no chance it could ever go off. Right. So, but anyway, that moment I was just like, oh man, that was, I did not like that. I thought, man, you could have done that. There had to be another take in there where you don't catch the light just that way to make me worried that he pushed the button. So.
I mean, you're cold and dead inside. You don't want to be worrying about anyone,
Look,
really.
All right. I don't.
How dare they make you worry?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think we've got anything else here. I think we've exhausted our lists here, which is fantastic. What a great episode to talk about.
I know. Yeah, it was a good one. It was a really strong episode.
Yeah, it really was. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a quick break, everybody. When we come back, we're going to discuss all this great listener feedback that we got and what's coming up next on the podcast.
All right. So everyone, please stick around, because, we'll be right back and we're going to get busy.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a weekly podcast covering the hit AMC programs The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the latest episodes. Aim for the Head, available on iTunes. You can also follow them on Facebook.
Hi, I'm Ross Marquand, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And remember, always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work.
Hey, everybody. We are back. We're going to jump right into our listener feedback that we got. Steve, you want to get us started off there? And we can get rolling.
Absolutely. We got to pile through this mountain of feedback. It's crazy. The poor postman, when he delivers all these letters, he has like a whole sack just for us. It's terrible.
He's going to have to get like a shoulder replacement or something for carrying the bag.
Absolutely.
Poor guy.
So, all right. So our first piece of feedback, this comes from our pal Karen. I'm not related to Miss Other Cohen. Yeah. And she sent this via the Facebook Facebook, and this is actually for episode 3. So this is for last week's episode. And she kind of gave it a Gimple title because she wrote "Left Too Late," which would be totally the name of a Gimple episode, right?
Yeah.
And she says, and this is for episode 3, which was last week, which I believe was called "Bye," right?
Yes.
And this is the one where Michonne's running around and doing all the actiony stuff, and Pearl or Thorne doesn't like it, and all that stuff. And then we have the all that stuff. So you remember? Okay. Yes. So she goes, I started to like Pearl, but by the end of this episode, I wasn't really feeling it. Her accent is hard to understand, and I can't tell where she's from, even though the show told us. Plus, she was about to kill Michonne, so that's not helping her case.
She's not wrong.
She's not wrong. I love Michonne's face when she saw Jadis. Her eyes were popping out of her head. Why did Jadis cut her nice hair? Good question. Now she just looks like a bad version of Mo from the Three Stooges. Certainly. Anyway, I'm right under the wire again, so I will wrap it. Cheers. And so, you're right. She did have really fine hair, and now she's got this, it's not like a military cut. It's like a weird, I lost an argument kind of haircut. I mean, I agree. Rick was right. It is a shirt haircut. There's no doubt.
It is. It's like a bowl. It's a bad bowl haircut. It's terrible.
Yeah. But it's like a bowl cut, but then they shave the sides. I don't know. It's weird. It's very weird.
Yeah. It makes no sense. Thanks for writing in last week, Karen. We missed getting it into the podcast last week, but I want to make sure that we chatted about your thoughts on episode 3. Yeah.
All right. Absolutely.
All right. So next up, we got an email from our pal Andy from Germany. Andy, bonjour.
Bonjour.
And Andy wrote in via the emails and says, bonjour, guys, which is why I said bonjour. I'm impressed how much you notice, Steve, without stopping the video. I missed all of this when I was watching at normal speed. This is feedback about last week's episode 3, just so we're clear.
Right.
And in last week's podcast, you also talked about stuff you saw in the opening, which I think is what he's referring to.
Okay.
Cool. I missed all of this when I was watching at normal speed. You two brought up some really good points on this podcast, so I think this posting will be a bit longer than usual. Well, goodness gracious. He continues. It says, I agree that an army made of bee people who just follow orders is not very useful in a fight, but the CRM never fights. There is no one left for them to fight against. All they do is kill defenseless civilians. For this job, bees might be better than A's.
Maybe.
That's an interesting thing. He continues and says, I think we know from World Beyond that the goal of the CRM is really to save humanity. After all, they gathered the group of scientists who had the order to find a way to save humanity. So I don't think it's the only propaganda. I guess the showrunners tried to create a moral ambiguity here, but they fail. Jadis's talk about the 500-year plan to save humanity reminded me of Hitler. He even had a 1,000-year plan. Having a plan is not enough to outweigh the murder of 100,000 civilians. It would have to be a convincing plan on how to save humanity, which also explains why those civilians have to die for that purpose. You're not wrong there. But after the ridiculous reason they gave for murdering those civilians, we already can guess that their secret plan is also bullshit. So there is no moral ambiguity. It's basically the same as with the Commonwealth. First, they are friendly and supportive, and then suddenly they attack without any reason. It doesn't work as a twist because it makes no sense. I don't get why Rick and Michonne don't work together. Rick could have explained the situation to Michonne, saying, there is Jadis, and if I run away, the CRM will destroy Alexandria. Instead, he tries to force her to leave, as if he doesn't trust her. Michonne, on the other hand, doesn't accept Rick's decision to stay. Instead, she pushes him out of the helicopter. But this won't change his mind, since it doesn't solve his problem. He will simply return to the CRM like she did before. I'm also not really convinced about Rick's failed attempts to flee from the CRM. I would expect him to try something more clever than cutting off his own hand. Since he's permitted to enter the Civil Republic, he could have tried to flee from there. A city of 200,000 needs around 400 square kilometers of farmland and many thousands of farmers. There would be people moving in and out of the city all the time. He makes a fair point.
He does.
Interesting explanation about kissing the sword. In the German dub, he said, use the sword. Interesting. And I like this inclusion here. He writes on and says, well, I rewatched Daryl's farewell scene in the finale of season 11. He says to Judith, while I am out there, if I see or hear anything, I'll find them both. I'll bring them home. So it could be that Judith told him, is what Andy says. Au revoir, how us francophone people say, Andy from Germany. And thanks for writing in, Andy. First of all, thanks for going back to that episode in the finale season there for Walking Dead, because we brought that up last week about the whole, like, you know, does Daryl even know what Michonne's doing, where she went, what her plan was, and
or that she found the boots and the phone and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I wonder if maybe Judith revealed some, but not all. Like maybe she didn't,
maybe she
details.
just said, mom just went out looking because she had to, type thing.
And exactly that. So thank you for that, Andy. It was nice. I couldn't remember exactly what was said to Daryl in that final moment. And it was nice to get some confirmation of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And no, go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish your thought.
Oh no, I was just going to say, and yes, it's pretty clear that the CRM is, I'm wagging my finger here, up to no good.
Uh-oh. I was going to say that I really, it was a great feedback as always. The only thing for me where I totally lost you is when you mentioned kilometers, because we're stupid Americans and we don't know what that is. So
yeah, sorry, man.
Yeah, you got to go with like miles and feet. And,
it's the only
yards, right? Yeah. And all that stuff. You start going with like smart, intelligent, measuring units in tens and things. We Americans don't get it. So
yeah, we don't understand the metric system.
No. We tried once.
As much as it makes sense.
They put up the signs and everybody went, nope, I don't think so. And then they took them down and stopped trying. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thanks a lot, Andy.
Thank you, Andy, as always, for writing in. We appreciate it.
All right, so moving along now. All the feedback now is, I believe, about episode 4 here. So we should be a current one. So here we go. We're starting out, and our first bit of feedback comes from our pal Amelia from the Pitney and Amelia show. Hello, Amelia. And this came via the email, and she says, "Hi guys, wow." All in caps. What a mad couple of episodes these two were. And what a long period of sitting on the sofa thinking, what do I want to comment on? What do I have to talk about? What do I think about these episodes apart from, hey, I'm enjoying this? So I think she's liking it. She goes on to say, is it because there aren't a bunch of superfluous characters getting up to amusing shenanigans? Perhaps. One thing that was consistent throughout both of these episodes was me yelling at my TV, come on, Michonne, punch him in the face. and you know what? I believe we're going to have that sentiment expressed several times in our feedback here. She goes, but no, she was playing the long game as if she had plenty of time. She just wanted to talk, and talk is all in caps. Clearly, Michonne is far more emotionally mature than I am, but she obviously didn't have my parents, and she doesn't rely on the Zoloft. She goes, oh my God, I would so never survive the zombie apocalypse. Really, though, she was big mad at the brave man and the restraint people. The restraint, my God, the dude got lucky. Yeah.
She's not wrong.
Anyone else would have, put out an ass whooping.
Yeah.
She goes, but one issue I had with episode 4 over and over again, how the hell are you not closing the drapes? It's night and suddenly lights go on in a building, but the CRM doesn't know they're there. It's as if these people have never hidden from Jehovah's Witnesses before. They're even blowing up helicopters right down the hall, and you're standing in a big window. Come on. And I guess I'm fine with a bright yellow truck with enough fuel to drive to Ohio from the Pacific Northwest. My babies are back together. I can't complain. Who am I kidding? Sure I can, but I'm really enjoying this damn show. On to number 5. And yeah, the only thing I would say about the lights, and for you, it's a very good point, but don't you have to assume that the lights are going on and off all the time because they're automated? And so it's possible that the CRM would be like, that's just that building, and it doesn't mean people are living there. It just means they're going on and off. I don't know. I'm just, logic where there is none is weird and doesn't always work. But that would just be my one possible solution to that.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was thinking too, was that they knew about this area or whatever and knew that, the lights came off and on and there weren't people in here.
Yeah, and it was they explored it. It was uninhabited and they left. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would point out too that like we said when we were discussing our points in the episode, Rick leaves the apartment where the big bay windows are just as the helicopter is approaching. And so, they're both in like an interior hallway, not facing that side of the building. So they are not visible when the helicopter shows up and fires the rockets. So, but you're right. You would think, just for modesty's sake, they would close the drapes at night. I mean, that's just common sense, right?
Oh, that's a learned behavior during the zombie apocalypse is when you find a safe place to be, you close up on the windows so that no one living or dead can see where you are. That's it.
I think that's a good thing.
All
right. Thanks a lot, Amelia.
Thank you. And I know that was she was kind of covering both episodes, but most of what she had to say was about this one. So
it was about 4. Yeah, you're right.
All right, so moving on, we got an email from our pal across the pond, Bev2. Hey, Bev, thanks for writing in.
Hello,
and Bev's email starts out, hi, guys. I hope you had a good week. Wow, what an episode. Can Denai just write everything in the Walking Dead universe? She's a powerhouse. This is what I was waiting for, the two of them away from the CRM, finally having the space to talk. Normally an episode which is mainly talking would be boring, but there was just so much we needed them to say to each other that every minute was exciting. I agree. I understand that a lot has happened to Rick, but his lack of reaction at having a son was a shock. If I was Michonne, I would have punched him right in the face. I think you and Amelia feel the same way about the violence. He's about to catch some hands.
The fact that they both came up with punching in the face is amazing.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. Then I would have decked him again when he wouldn't come home after the helicopter crashed and they had a clear way out. I'm sure as well that I wasn't the only one screaming at him to go after her when she leaves. The genius of this episode was to get the audience angry at Rick, to make us feel as broken and let down as Michonne, so that when they finally reveal the bit about him not remembering Carl and not being able to lose her again, we can understand why he's acted the way he has. I just wish now that they would go straight home. Once they've checked in with the kids and found Daryl, then I will allow them to fight the CRM. Unfortunately, I don't think I have a say. Looking forward to hearing what you both think of this episode. Bev, seeing signs of spring in Devon. Same here. The daffodils and the crocuses are starting to pop up.
Although today it was 28. But
yes,
yeah, you're right. Other than that, it's very springy.
Actual snow while I was at work today.
Yes, yeah. But other than that, spring is definitely springing.
Yeah, absolutely. So. This is as much of a Chicago spring as you can ever expect. With you're like, oh, it's so pretty, and there's things growing, and what is that? Is there dust? I was like,
nope.
Some MF and snow, and I'm not happy. Yeah, that was my day. Thanks for writing in, Bev. I agree with pretty much everything you say, including the part where you don't have a say. I don't have a say either, but I kind of want them to run home as well. So
hey, this could have been a 4-episode miniseries, and I think I would have been happy.
Yeah, they could stop right now. Like, we don't need to have any resolution. Like, who cares about the guy from Lost? Big deal. Whatever.
Right.
Pearl, whatever. She'll get her own spinoff.
There you go. It'll be the Lock Mace show, the Mace Lock show or something.
Yeah, they are off into the sunset together, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Nothing you can do about it. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so
thanks, Bev.
Moving along, our next piece of feedback came from our pal Alma Contreras. Hello, Alma. How are you doing? Good to hear from you, as usual.
Yes.
She sent this in via the Facebook, and she goes, finally, we get the episode we were waiting for. So intimate. I really like the fact that Michonne asked all the questions we've been wondering about, and yay, she finally dropped the RJ bomb. I agree. I think, this was, again, like I said, the whole first act of this, Michonne is kind of acting like the audience and pointing out all the things we've been pointing out to Rick of like, why are you acting this way? What's up? So I totally agree with you. She goes, I can't wait to hear y'all's thoughts. By the way, Steve, what was your take on how conveniently they landed in water, but then the helicopter is shown crash in a building? Well, I was like, of course that happens. And again, like I pointed out, my cold and dead heart is not able to really acknowledge coincidence. I don't really think there is a lot of coincidence. The things don't happen like that. There's always, something more behind it. But anyway. Yeah. She goes, I admit it made me chuckle a little bit. And then she put the laughing emoji and I can't see the other emoji.
I think it's the hand over the face giggling emoji.
Oh,
kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. So then you're right. Again, it was very convenient that not only when they jump out of the helicopter, they're over water, but they're also like 30 feet over water so they can hit the water and not die, and then literally like 5 seconds later, the helicopter apparently crashes into the building and everybody dies. I mean, those are 3 super great coincidences. They should go buy lottery tickets immediately.
And even though they jumped in the dark and landed in the dark, and presumably the helicopter landed probably just a wee bit after they did, they didn't see any explosion.
No,
so because when they looked out the window, they were like, "Oh my God, shocking!"
Yeah, they were like, "Wait, when did that happen?" So you're right. I don't know.
Yeah, good points, Alma. Thank you so much for writing in.
Thank you so much, Alma.
Stuff. Yeah. And next up on the docket is I think we got a little twofer action here.
Ooh, twofer.
From Karen, not related to Lauren Cohen, who wrote in again via the Facebook. And her first thing she says, I'm on time today. Okay, so here's what she writes. She puts, where the hell are they?
Same thing you put.
I'm right there with you. Right. Still not clear, but, I think Amelia's right. Pacific Northwest sounds pretty
I think
close.
It's very close to the Cascadia base that they were setting up, that forward operations base. They left there
very far.
They did not get very far, and they hit bad weather, and then they jumped and the chopper went down. That's my recollection. So that I agree with Amelia. I think that's where they were.
Yeah. Agreed. So where the hell are they? We're not sure. Maybe. Rick is pretty broken. I loved how Michonne grabbed some weapons on her way out after their argument. It's amazing neither of them fell on that knife when they fell over. And then OMG, she's been carrying around that iPhone. I guess timing is everything. No need to bust it out during the first argument or anything. It didn't fall out when they jumped out of the helicopter?
No, it did not.
Morgan has some steep competition. Yeah, that's true. Wow, they took the elevator. All in all, I think the acting was great, but could have done without the sex scene. I mean, he still had his pants on. Cheers.
Yeah,
and she's not wrong. If you watch the scene close enough, he sort of goes in for the wild finish, and he does.
For the what? What does he go in for?
The finish.
Mm-hmm.
You're just trying to get me to say climax again, aren't you?
I am. Come on now. That definitely was the Hollywood sex scene there, where girl pretty much completely unclothed, man, 3-piece suit. I mean, that's just the way it
exactly.
works. So
yeah. I mean, we're just lucky he had his shirt off.
Exactly. There you go.
Thanks for writing in again, Karen, and getting it in on time.
That was very, very cool. We love it.
Yeah. Well, when you get it in on time, we can include it. See?
There you see?
It benefits you as much as it benefits
it's us. Win-win, okay? Or maybe in this case, win-win-win. I don't know.
Yeah, right. I mean, today was win-win because it was a double entry. So
then it would be win-win-win, win-win-win.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my
Yes,
God.
yes, yes.
Stop talking. Yeah. All right. So coming up on the podcast next week, we'll be discussing episode 5, which is called Become.
Mm-hmm.
What we become.
What we become. Oh boy, Gimple. We're being Gimpled.
Gimpleness. I can't. It's so thick and thick, surrounded in a wave of Gimple. But that's fine. No episode description yet. See some scenes where they are in a sort of remote, sort of forest / cabin. Yep. There's a mysterious figure in a cloak that finds them, and that's what I know about that. And that's all we really get.
It definitely looks like they're still out in the wild, so they do not, find any civilization. They do not go back to the CRM, at least in this episode, at least what we saw.
Yeah, the clips they've given us so far.
And you wrote down, the one line that Michonne says that I'm sure made everybody watching go, seriously?
Yeah. And she says, I see now there's no way we can go home.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not that's a reaction in the moment and it, changes with whatever circumstances, but that doesn't bode well. And I'm sure like no one was expecting them to have some sort of like smooth drive from, someplace in Oregon all the way to Ohio / Virginia, depending on where they want to stop first. Yeah.
If they have any kind of working radio, they could always hire Iron Tiger Trucking. And
they could.
Get across the highways and byways of America like that. So it's totally possible. But yeah,
or they could if they could just find a truck and fall asleep in the back of it, they'd be home.
They'd get
like
to Mississippi
that.
like you wouldn't believe. Yeah, that's a good point.
They just gotta Morgan their way home. God. That'd be the best way, the quickest way.
So
and they barely even know what happened,
So which one of them would have to learn how to make cheese?
I don't know. I don't think either one of those people are a cheesemaker. I don't think they have it in them. All right, so that's what's coming up next on the podcast next week. Also next weekend is Days of the Dead.
That's right. Very excited. As of this recording, you have until Thursday the 21st to get tickets at reduced prices. So if you listen to this in the next day or two and you are in the Chicagoland area and you want to come to the show, or you're thinking of going to the show, it would definitely be a good idea to take advantage of that, because you do save a decent amount of money. A weekend pass in advance is like $60, and at the door it's like $80. So it's it's something.
I was looking at the prices for the Saturday, for just going on Saturday, and if you get them in advance it's like $30, but if you get it at the door it's $50. So right. So if you have if you think you're gonna go, I definitely try and get that ticket early. It will definitely be worth it.
Absolutely.
There's so many great people there, so many great vendors there, great artists there, great talent there. They always do a great job. And then the panel discussions are always great. Our pal Summer from the Dolls of Horror will be there, I'm sure, and leading the way, and it's going to be so much fun. Much fun.
Looking forward to it.
And then topped off with the little Caddyshacks.
Little Caddyshack, little dinner. We'll see if they have the specialized menu that goes with the Days of the Dead, which they usually do, where they'll have dishes, like Freddy Krueger's tossed salad and stuff like that, and it's fun. It's just a neat little extra, and we can do some people watching, and sometimes if we're lucky enough, we get to sit right next to Greg Nicotero and so on. So it's going to be great. And again, of course, if you're listening to this podcast like 3 years from now, you missed it. What can I tell you?
Yeah. Sorry. Past Steve and Diana are very sad you didn't make it. So maybe sometime next year, or the year after, or the year after, or the year
after that. But after that, no more.
After. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think there's anything else to discuss. I think this is a wrap, man. It's a wrap.
This is it. I like it. This is good.
I like it too. Like it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, folks. Thanks again for listening this week. We look forward to chatting with you next week when we discuss episode 5, Become. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve. Bonjour.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTHpodcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
Yeah, like at about 11, I thought of that idea, and so I texted Joe, and I'm like, you gotta like crank out like about, give me like several different like porno guitar stings. And he's like, all right, I'll see what I can do. And I literally wrote in the text, I read it like think, bow, chicka, wow now.